Thank you, Mr. Toti. Now we shall give the floor to Mr. Techtin. You have the floor, Mr. Techtin.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair and committee members. I deeply appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today on the important matter of countering foreign interference. I would also like to thank everyone involved for taking this matter seriously and for the detailed process to develop countermeasures. My presentation today will focus on part one of the Bill C-70 with reference to the review by Sarah Tick and Hannah Taylor. While the review finds many of the amendments encouraging, it highlights a limitation. Bill C-70 does not propose addition of a definition of a transnational repression to any pieces of the legislation it aims to amend or enact. And a brief note on the foreign interference and versus the transnational repression. Foreign interference and transnational repression, though related, tend to see the difference seems to be that it targets different groups. The available literature on the topic seems to suggest that foreign interference typically targets state structures seeking to influence governmental and political processes, whereas the transnational repression targets diaspora groups such as Tibetans and Uyghurs, aiming to silence dissent and control opposition within these communities. Defining transnational repression is essential to recognize and address the specific tactics used by foreign states to silence dissent among diaspora communities. This repression can take various forms, including harassment, surveillance, threats, coercion, and physical violence. Authoritarian states such as the PRC routinely use these tactics to control dissent and opposition beyond their borders. The PRC's transnational repression is a well-documented phenomenon affecting several groups, including Tibetan diaspora. The Chinese Communist Party employs various methods to exert control and suppress Tibetan activism and identity worldwide. Key tactics include some of the tactics. One, surveillance and intimidation. The PRC has engaged in extensive transnational repression against the approximately 150,000 Tibetans living outside the Tibet, and many of whom reside as refugees in South Asia. This repression includes harassment, surveillance, coercion aimed at silencing and controlling Tibetan diaspora. According to the U.S. State Department, the Tibetan overseas community has frequently faced cyber attacks, phishing attempts, and online intimidation believed to be orchestrated by the PRC government. Freedom House reported relentless phishing and hacking attacks against Tibetans in exile, while Safeguard Defenders highlighted that PRC authorities have issued death threats to force Tibetans to silence or return to Tibet. In 2019, Tibetan Canadian student leader Chimi Lhamo received a death threat that likely originated from Chinese diplomats in Canada. Number two, coercion by proxy. Chinese authorities frequently threaten or harm relatives of exiled Tibetans in Tibet to exert control over the diaspora. This method ensures that exile activists are silenced or forced to conform to CCP's demands out of fear for their loved ones. Jamestown Foundation noted that Chinese consulates abroad gather data from family members applying for visas to identify and target Tibetans in PRC, in the regions including Tibet, with the government compelling Tibetans in Tibet to pressure family members seeking asylum overseas to return home. This is something we have observed in Canada as well, just that they won't speak because they still have families inside Tibet. Number three, infiltration and disinformation. And the CCP infiltrates Tibetan diaspora communities and organizations using spies and co-opted individuals to sow distrust, spread disinformation, and undermine solidarity networks. One notable incident involves the distribution of a fake letter forged the signature of Honorable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, which the letter promoted PRC narrative about Tibet in 2019, which upheld the Tibetan-Canadian coalition. Such actions are designed to create confusion, erode trust within community, and disrupt efforts to advocate for Tibetan rights. These activities severely impair the community's ability to organize and stand united in their advocacy. In 2018, the PRC appointed delegates from the Tibet Autonomous Region testified at the Foreign Affairs Committee, and when asked by a committee member about key human rights issues on whereabouts of Tibet's religious leader Panchen Lama, who was abducted at the age of 6, the witness who was representing the Chinese government and testifying before the committee said that he does not wish to be disturbed. So with that, I would like to add some recommendation for the incorporating a clear definition of transnational repression in Bill C-70 would enhance Canada's ability to combat foreign interference effectively. It would provide a legal basis for identifying and prosecuting transnational repression activities, thereby protecting diaspora communities from foreign state harassment and coercion. Recommendation 1, define transnational repression. Include a comprehensive definition of transnational repression that encompasses all forms of extraterritorial control and coercion used by foreign states against the diaspora community. 2, enhance surveillance and prosecution mechanism. Strengthen provisions within the CSS Act and the Criminal Code to allow for robust monitoring and prosecution of transnational repression activities, ensuring that perpetrators are held accountable. Number 3, support victims and communities. Establish mechanisms, including specialized funds to support and protect diaspora communities, providing resources and assistance to those affected by transnational repression. And final, international cooperation. Foster international collaboration to address transnational repression, working with allies to develop coordinated response and share best practices. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Terchin.